This video was meant to come out way earlier in the year, but better late than never, I guess. Because this is one angle of the recent electoral loss from the Democrats that I frankly just haven't seen discussed at all. And while it might not be one of the major reasons why Kamala lost, I think this reason is still notable enough to be worth mentioning, especially considering when I even brought up the idea of doing an episode like this, people immediately misinterpreted what I was even discussing. Because there are a lot of people who seem to also not quite understand which third party to blame. Because, well, we can go on and on about how the GOP boasted the candidacies of Jill Stein and Cornel West, which isn't at all in dispute, but if you know me, you know that I don't like throwing the spoiler accusation in situations where it doesn't fit. And in this situation, it definitely does not fit. I've interacted with supporters of Jill Stein and Cornel West. None of them were going to vote for Kamala Harris. Not only because there's literally a poll conducted by FairVote that showed Stein voters are definitely not fans of Kamala, but even if we did play the magical hypothetical scenario where every single person who was going to vote for Jill Stein and Cornel West just decided, you know what, screw it, we're going to vote for Kamala Harris. Guys, I know it's a liberal fantasy, but let's just play hypotheticals. This is the actual 2024 map. And this is the map taking that shift into consideration. Notice how nothing changed? I've never considered these two serious candidates before, why start now? Nor am I going to talk about the other obvious example of RFK Jr., who was literally pushed into the race by Republicans to try and make Democrats shift away and then run into the Republican fold. What I'm talking about is the fact that Donald Trump spent years taking over two of America's largest third parties and essentially turned them into satellite parties, and nobody seems to have noticed. Probably because what happened with these parties are not as flashy as what happened with these parties. Let us begin with the story of the Constitution Party, a smaller paleoconservative party that has existed since 1990, which has had a rather difficult time staying afloat even with the rise of multiple alternative right-wing movements in the United States, most of their energy being sucked away by larger groups and figures that were doing the same thing. Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul, and of course, Donald Trump. Especially when the latter worked really hard to get younger paleocons, while the Constitution Party was stuck with an aging group of paleocons that didn't really do much electorally outside of maybe hurting the GOP every once in a while, such as in the 2010 Colorado gubernatorial race, which bumped the GOP to third. Now, of course, sometimes these groups would intersect with each other, but they were still separate entities that didn't really want to help each other out. And even early on in Donald Trump's career, the party really pushed away anybody who was really a Trumpster. But in the wake of the 2024 election, they tried a different approach. From October 19th to the 21st of 2023, the Constitution Party held a convention in St. Louis, and the keynote address was given by Michael Flynn, the former United States National Security Advisor under Trump's first 22 days, until he resigned after admitting that he had been in illegal communication with a Russian diplomat, Sergei Kislyak, alongside literally being friendly with Vladimir Putin. Flynn would afterwards become a notable figure amongst the hardline MAGATs, particularly the QAnon cultists. And now, coincidentally, he is invited to the Constitution Party convention to give the keynote address? I mean, okay, yeah, whatever, maybe they invited him on for some broader ideological agreements, but they still nominated someone to run against Trump, prominent anti-abortion activist Randall Terry. But did they? While yes, Terry did run for president, he wasn't running against Trump. His campaign was more focused on attacking Biden, Kamala, and the Democrats through the abortion issue. Funnily enough, Terry actually seemed more interested in trying to siphon off votes from Harris than Trump, basically making a plea for Catholics and African Americans to reject the Democratic Party. One of the two endeavors was more successful than the other. Why would Terry run against him? He supported Trump.
Defiance. That is a word that sums up President Trump on so many levels, and it's why
Jesus told me to make Randall Terry gay.
But that was before he ran for president, you might be saying. Maybe he changed his mind in the 247 days before.
I won't hurt Trump. Pastor Broden and I want to express our grief and our solidarity with President Trump and his family. The mission that we have is simple: defend babies, defeat Biden, destroy the Democrat Party.
We thank God that the next president of the United States, Donald Trump, is alive. The next president of the United States, Donald Trump.
This eerily reminds me of the Kennedy situation, seemingly being put there specifically as plants to try and siphon off votes. But for all we know, this could have just been all coincidental. The second story, I don't think is. The second story being about Donald Trump taking over the American Libertarian Party. But before we get into that, let me give a brief explanation of the Libertarian Party. The party was founded in 1971 and has been known for being America's largest third party, usually being the go-to grouping for everybody who hates the Democrats and Republicans. While the party does espouse the ideology of libertarianism, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and there have been a lot of ideological struggles fighting for control of the party. And for lack of a better term, the divide usually stemmed from people who were not too far removed from mainstream politics versus ideologues that are 100% insane. Such as the case in 2008, where the nomination process was a battle between a former Republican congressman versus a woman who argued that the government banning was an infringement of people's liberty. The divide's coming to a head in the 2016 presidential election, where we got one of the most famous moments in the Libertarian Party's modern history.
Should someone have to have a government-issued license to drive a car?
Hell no.
The government requires licenses to get married. They require a license to drive. What's next? Requiring a license to make toast in your own damn toaster? Absolutely not.
A license to drive? You know, I'd like to see some competency exhibited by people before they drive.
In the wake of Gary Johnson's nomination, the battle lines would be redrawn to be among two ideological factions: the Cosmetarians, the socially liberal libertarians, and the Paleo-libertarians, the socially conservative libertarians. Which I find odd, considering when an ideology is broadly defined as socially liberal and fiscally conservative, and then you remove the former, what's left? Which led to another issue, because around that same time, there was another political grouping that had roots in a more socially conservative libertarianism, the alt-right. And many of these libertarians began to intermingle with these crowds, which I thought would be difficult, considering the alt-right was literally every single ist in the book. But many libertarians did flock. Some jumped ship entirely, while others had a different motive. The formal party wing of this group was the Mises Caucus, a political faction in the Libertarian Party that had the explicit goal of taking the party over and shifting its ideology towards this crowd. And after a little bit of a slow burn in the late 2010s, they succeeded in 2022 by electing Angela McArdle as the chair of the party. And that's when things started changing. It started off seemingly still in the realm of libertarian craziness, like them being hardcore anti-maskers during COVID makes sense considering their whole no step on Sneck vibes. But soon, many libertarians, both online and off, just started praising Trump, which only made sense if you ignored his previous administration's actions, being pro-death penalty, particularly for drug crimes, raising the deficit by increasing funding to the military, appointing a ton of war hawks into his administration. And these aren't coming from me. This is on the Libertarian Party's website. And yet now, many people who claim to be massive libertarian diehards were just openly on the Trump train, with it seemingly coming to a head during their process to pick their presidential nominee for 2024. The two main candidates vying for the nomination being perennial candidate Chase Oliver and author Michael Rectenwald. Chase and Michael representing the divide among the two factions, as well as having very different political pasts. Chase was a Democrat until 2010, and Michael was a Marxist turned Trump supporter. the Mises Caucus enthusiastically backed Michael, while the classical liberals backed Chase. Meanwhile, despite this never happening in the past, the party would also invite two candidates outside of the party to make their case for the nomination. RFK Jr., the campaign Trump created to try and siphon Democrats into his tent, and the main man himself, both essentially trying in desperate vain to plead that the libertarians should back them over a guy who's been a loyal party member and ideologue since 2010. However, due to certain rules, Trump himself couldn't actually be put into consideration. It didn't stop 6 delegates from voting for him anyways, but as the convention drew on, it became a battle between these two. But after 6 ballots, Rechtenwald was out. But then came ballot 7, Chase Oliver versus none of the above. I remember seeing this happen live and actually being a little shocked, especially when it was revealed exactly what would happen if Chase lost. The Libertarian Party would not have a nominee. A thing that wasn't exactly clear because there had been previous issues where none of the above would lead to a second round of voting, which many delegates wanted to reiterate, guys, if we don't pick a nominee, we don't have a nominee. But Angela McArdle shut them down every single time they showed up to talk, stating that it was obvious what would happen, almost as if she had an agenda. And after the party nominated Chase Oliver, all of a sudden, many, if not all, the Mises Caucus members turned their backs on the nominee of their party. All of a sudden, Chase Oliver was some kind of woke leftist infiltrator who was trying to destroy the party from within. Why, you may ask? Chase Oliver supports open borders. Libertarian Party Platform, Section 3, Part 4, Free Trade and Migration. Economic freedom demands the unrestricted movement of human as well as financial capital across national borders. Chase Oliver supports abortion. Libertarian Party Platform Section 1, Part 1, Self-Ownership. Individuals own their bodies and have rights over them that other individuals, groups, and governments may not violate. Chase Oliver supports drag queens and trans kids. Libertarian Party Platform Section 1, Part 4, Personal Relationships. Sexual orientation, preference, gender, or gender identity should have no impact on the government's treatment of individuals. Chase Oliver supports the vaccine.
To clarify, they were not mad that Chase Oliver supported vaccine mandates. Because he did not. They were mad that Chase Oliver supported the vaccine itself.
Libertarian Party Platform Section 1, Part 1, Self-Ownership. Individuals have the freedom and responsibility to decide what they knowingly and voluntarily consume, and what risks they accept to their own health, finances, safety, or life. Like, literally all the things they hate Chase Oliver for were things their party allegedly supported. Things that Oliver was way more in line with the party than Trump ever was, leading to 2 very obvious reasons why they're mad at Chase. 1, coincidentally, all this drama about him being a woke leftist infiltrator happened when the Libertarian Party nominated an openly gay man. And 2, it was very clear they just supported Trump. Why else would the party have been pushing hard for 4 options that were essentially supporting Trump? Endorsing Trump has very obvious implications. Noda would have cleared the Libertarian ballot line, RFK Jr. would have done so anyways when he suspended his bid, and I highly suspect Rechtenwald would have done the same thing, considering who he voted for on election day. And it wasn't just nasty words either. There are many libertarian state parties that wanted to stop Oliver's nomination even after he was nominated, the 2 most egregious ones being Colorado and New Hampshire. The latter explicitly endorsing Trump, with Colorado not only trying to nominate Kennedy for president, but also working a deal with Colorado Republicans to step aside to help boost their candidates down the ballot. In fact, there was only 1 member of the Mises Caucus who actually supported Chase Oliver, and that was Angela McArdle. On a first glance, you might just say, well, yeah, of course she's going to support her own party's nominee. But no, here's the actual reason why.
I think we got to do everything we can to kick Joe Biden's ass. And one of the best ways to do that is to support Chase Oliver and go hard in the paint for him in blue states. Going to work very aggressively, specifically in blue states, to make sure he has the support that he needs from the National Party. But I encourage people to try to use the Chase Oliver campaign to pull protest votes from the left.
And to top it all off, 4 days after Donald Trump was inaugurated, coincidentally, Angela McArdle resigned from her position as head of the Libertarian Party, stating that she had fulfilled her duty and was ready to join the Trump administration because she's still under the delusion that Donald Trump will fulfill his promise of appointing a libertarian to the cabinet. Granted, she also embezzled $45,000 from the Libertarian Party into her boyfriend's company, so maybe that was a factor. There are some of you who might be watching this and going, man, why would the Libertarian Party sell out their principles for a quick buck? You just answered your own question, because their main principle is capitalism and money. They are literally the one group in politics that you would very much see do this. And if you pay attention, there are a lot of financial incentives to back Trump. One of the most prominent libertarian content creators, Freedom Tunes, works for Tim Pool and Tenet Media, who were caught selling out to Russia. So it's no surprise that he went from this.
What does it say about our nation when people think that a toupee who hates Mexicans is a more qualified president than 2 medical doctors? And build a wall? Build a wall? This is what the Christian right is supporting? Do you realize that the Mexican population is likely the future of Christianity in this country?
To this.
Wilkerson, an investigative journalist, was at the Capitol on January 6th. Just 3 years later, she was found dead at the southern border while investigating an unknown issue. I want instead of insulting us, you say thank you. How about you say thank you for everything we've done?
Thank you. I don't care.
Angela McArdle made an appearance at the Rage Against the War Machine rally, which was also bankrolled by people with connections to Russia. Where do you think she got the $45,000? Kennedy had the Colorado Libertarian Party on his bankroll. Like, none of this can be a coincidence, right? Clearly this was all planned. And as you can see, it's been planned for a while. Meanwhile, Democrats using third parties as AstroTurf doesn't work. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.